Hey everyone, Richard with SBCom here. Today we interviewed a few of our clients to share their journey of how it was to implement technology into their home with us, as well as how the relationship went long term. I hope you enjoy. Well, Manjeet, I really appreciate you coming and even spending the time here. I know logistically, right, we're just going back and forth because I know you travel a lot, and I look forward to seeing your now new business flourish. So that's going to be really exciting.
Thanks, Richard.
So the whole purpose for today is I wanted to share the stories of all of our different clients and the different stories. And you and I met through William and for your house in Atlanta. So I wanted to take us back before you even met us, like when you were getting ready to plan the home and things of that nature. Tell me about that experience. How did that flow for you in trying to get ready to build that home?
Well, my Atlanta house is my third new house. I've been fortunate to have new houses starting out. And so to be able to design it from the ground up, though, was new because my first two houses were full production homes. Mm-hmm. And when those were built, technology wasn't what it is today. And actually, the inspiration for doing something like we ended up doing came from my cousins in McKinney, Texas, outside of Dallas. That he did all this DIY work in his house, had cameras inside and structured wiring and networking and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so I saw the opportunity with this house in Atlanta to be able to design it from the ground up, to add that in there. And it was something that I was able to discuss with William and Mark from the outset. And since I had just moved to Atlanta, I had three things to do for the first 6 months. Learn the new job and do that one, exercise, and design the house. So I really got to drop down into the rabbit hole of design for the house, which included all of this technology because I wanted it built in on day one. Right. And instead of fully hodgepodge together. Now, I know we ended up not fully being able to do the system-wide design from day one, but It was definitely an improvement over what it had been if I had just done it all together myself. And it resulted for some compromises in working with the builder and what they had already spec'd out versus what I was incrementally learning from working with you and then going down the rabbit hole of spending all the time on the internet in my mini dorm hotel while I waited for this house to be built for 10 and a half months.
You mentioned, so you said your cousin in Texas, mm-hmm. And it was a lot of DIY. So what were the pain points that you wanted to avoid? Because, right, they went that DIY route. What made you not go the DIY route?
I wanted it clean. So I have a minimalist design ethos, and I wanted everything clean from day one. So all the wiring put in and as future-proofed as it could be, and everything looking seamless and like it was well thought out. And even the user interface of the apps that I would be using to have as simple and clean as possible. So that drove some of the decision making of some of the equipment that we ended up selecting and speccing for the house. So that really wanting everything as integrated as it could be. And yet this was part of the issue, was that I also wanted certain types of systems in my house that didn't, of course, get integrated fully on day one. Hopefully some of the technology today that we've started talking about for maybe later this year will allow that to be bridged and integrated in the future. But it certainly, I certainly could have taken more of your advice on day one and maybe pushed the builder a little bit harder and say, all right, well, we're going to change some of these things anyway. But that was part of the thinking.
You know, in our process, we talk about identifying the vision, right, as step one, right? And when you and I met, we were trying to get that vision laid out. And I know, right, the second part, going to all the way to step three, we design systems. For your Atlanta home, right, we did not design it. We kept compartmentalizing these different things. And so just tell us through that experience, even though we didn't follow our process and for that particular project, how did that feel going through it, making those decisions and, you know, trying to guide that journey?
Well, I appreciated that you were flexible in iterating through this process this ad hoc process that I put together for this house. Yeah, I appreciated all that iteration for sure, and the advice you would give. So as I would go down those rabbit holes late at night in my mini dorm hotel, and then send you those emails, and we'd have conversations. You'd say, yes, but what about this? And then sometimes I'd think, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Why don't we do that? Other times I'd be stubborn and be like, no, I want it to be like this. And you would always be candid and flag the opportunities and issues that came up with this ad hoc process. In the end, I was very happy with what I had put together in the house, and thought long term. And that was always part of the vision, like long term, just making sure that whatever's in there, that it could be integrated and work together in the future. And I just put faith in the future that technology would come along to maybe bootstrap some of these things together over time.
I want to actually circle back too, because when you decided to hire us, like what was that moment when we met, and I know I was trying to push, hey, this is our process. This is the certain products we recommend or don't recommend, like HomeKit. I know you and I laughed about that one for a while, right? But what made you make that decision to say, you know what? Yeah, these are our guys. I'm going to use them to make this work happen.
Yeah, so remember it was, I had this vision of having a light on the exterior of the soffit for that cantilevered roof above my deck. And I wanted this cool color-changing LED light on that soffit, and which I jokingly call the club light that I have on from basically sunset until about 3 or 4 hours later. And so in talking about that with you, you came up with a solution, and it was $1,500. I was like, what? $1,500 for a light bulb? Of course, it was more than a light bulb. But I was like, what the heck? That is just nowhere in the ballpark of what I was thinking. So that began the journey down the rabbit hole, was to figure out, like, okay, what's this locks-on system for that? Was the particular system that we used. And then I started seeing all these other capabilities, which I didn't really understand. So that really was the beginning of that conversation. And suddenly we went from this $1,500, light bulb into a full $20,000, $25,000 system that we ad hoc together to put all these pieces that I wanted into this home that I couldn't have done without your advice and guidance, because I didn't even know these things existed. I just had ideas in my head, and then the more we went down this path, the more ideas I came up with, and it just expanded the scope of work in a way that I just became increasingly excited about that your company, SBCom, enabled for me.
I make a saying all the time when I first meet clients. I say, your limitation is your imagination. So with your experience, do you feel that that's a true statement when it comes to dealing with technology in a home?
Yes.
Yeah. I say it all the time. It's like, hey, trust me.
Yeah, Richard, you always remind me too to check with you first before I start buying more pieces and trying to connect them. And sometimes I get all excited and I forget to do that. And then I talk to you afterward.
So you hired us. We implemented that color $1,500 light bulb, turned into an entire system. You got inspired by browsing the manufacturer's site. How was the experience in the implementation side when you started seeing the technicians showing up, getting everything set up, making decisions, dealing with risks and issues that happened throughout the project? How was that experience for you?
Well, your team was definitely very professional and detail-oriented and very thoughtful about how they were doing the work in the house. So I was very impressed from that during the construction phase, and then afterward when the actual individual widgets were attached to the system that was built into the house, so the cameras and then the sensors and all of that, and then coming in for additional service calls if I wanted something changed, how very careful and cautious the technicians were and how they took time to answer the questions, because part of the process for me was just making sure that I at least had some conceptual understanding about how things worked, because that helped me make decisions and think through that bigger picture, and then pivot when I needed to pivot, or keep going down the path and feeling confident about that. So the how thoughtful the techs were when they were on site and really thinking ahead, because y'all had the experience many times before and what it took to build and understand the risks and the timing for progressing the steps toward delivery.
You felt that went through even during the implementation side with the team as they progressed through the project, and even to service is what I'm hearing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. That's definitely a win there. We say communication is key, right? We could know all the different technology in the world, right? We could be the extreme super nerd, but we feel communication is the most important.
And I can tell you communicate within your business with your team, that there's an expectation that you're aware of what's going on with all of your clients and can help to provide guidance, and you always know what's going on. So if there's a follow-up conversation, you were already aware through those conversations with your techs, and they check in with you, so that coordination and communication extends internally within your business. That was clear to me as a business owner myself.
During that whole process, right, even through service, if you can have a signature, if SBCom had a signature to the project, right, both with that and in service, like a one-word signature, what would that be for you?
Oh, it would be I would say simple.
I like it. Because technology is not simple.
Yeah, because all of this technology is complicated. It doesn't all talk together. And how SBCom takes all these different possibilities based on the chaos that may be in my head as the client, as the customer, and think about how to bring it all together, even in an ad hoc fashion, as we did, to have it come together in a way that was simple, which goes along with clean too, right? Because that aesthetic, not only what I visually can see, but how it operates and within the house, when I'm walking around in the house, I'm still in awe of my house, because I didn't grow up having the opportunity that I was able to build here in Atlanta. And I still stroll around the house in awe, not only looking at the house itself, but the technology, and looking at the two structured cabinets in the laundry room and how those all came together. Yeah. So clean follows simple.
You mentioned earlier, you didn't have this technology into your home in the past, right? And then you saw it. You were inspired by your cousin. Tell us what's different, right? Like before the technology being implemented into your home, and now, what's that feel like to have all this being simple?
Well, as you said, I travel a lot for work, and my partner Jessica lives in East Cobb, so I'm often at her house. So for all that I love about my home, I'm actually not in it a whole lot. And just a couple of times a week is the ideal for me. And what this technology allows me to do is to monitor the house. So I get to look inside of it. I get to look around it with the cameras. It's monitored, so it has a security system through what we put in there. And then I can make sure that the window coverings are closed, and the temperatures, particularly the temperature, things always changing around here. So just feeling like things are secure. It gives me confidence that things are okay with the house. And also just emotionally, because I love the house, but I don't get to be there as much as I thought I would be because of my lifestyle. So I feel connected, like emotionally connected with the house, because how the technology that we put in there and the system allows me to feel like I'm there and be connected with it. And up until recently, the power grid in my neighborhood is really unreliable. It's constantly going out at least once a month. Yeah. And it's not like it's for very long, but it's enough sometimes to knock down the system. And recently, I put in a solar system and a whole house battery. And then part of that was actually having that conversation with you about how can I back up my system? Because sometimes it doesn't boot back up depending on how the power either fully went out or browned out. And so when I would be out of town and that would happen, then I'd be blind. I wouldn't know what was going on with the house. I didn't like that. Mm-hmm. And so now I have that whole home battery with the solar, and the house, of course, the power's gone out a couple of times since that was installed in December, and everything still works because now the home has continuous power no matter what occurs with the rickety grid in my old neighborhood there. So I no longer have to worry that I'm going to have a blind spot for a period of hours or days, depending on where I'm at and my travels for work or my time with Jessica.
Actually, that was a lesson learned for us too. I know when we had that conversation about your home, and I was like, man, that's something we should have definitely thought of on the front end to see how we could support that. And so we're actually, there's a company called Apex we're talking to really help that. So that's going to be really exciting. And it's all due to ongoing relationships and learning, right? What variables can be out there in the world. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the support and service side. You are a member of ours. How's that been working for you? And remember you said communication was key for us. How's that been working for you?
Yeah, it's great. So I pay for the monthly service. So everything's monitored by SBCom. And then if I do need service, be it because something needs some attention or I want to add something in there, then through that monthly service, there's that discounted rate for labor. And it's worked out great. So whenever something happens, like if I'm out of town and the system before I got the whole house battery would be knocked down, then I would send an email. And within 15 minutes, every single time, no matter what time of day or night, somebody would call and check in. And if they could do it themselves, they would, or they would quickly escalate it to that advanced support. And it usually would be the same 2 or 3 people that knew my house. Right. And would be able to troubleshoot it right away. So, yeah, it's been really helpful just knowing that the support is there, that the system is monitored, that upgrades through software are pushed out as needed. And so it helps me not have to think about doing it all myself.
If you had a friend like sitting right next to you right now and they're getting ready to hop on the journey of building a home, just like you got inspired from your cousin in Texas, what would be the advice that you would give them?
My advice is to start this journey early. So if somebody is thinking about just even doing a partial renovation of their house, to start thinking about, well, all right, you're going to be opening things up in the house. Well, what is it that you want? This vision that you always stress about, think through your vision, which in my line of work as a planner, I do land use and transportation planning. You always want to start out with what's the big picture vision and then start to go from there and progress and add on more details. So to think about that when the opportunity opens up, because there's a lot more you can do and for cheaper earlier in the process than trying to add it on later. So if the house is opened up, you can put in that wiring and not have to rely on Wi-Fi. To be able to hardwire things that don't move. Yes. I mean, that's what you want to do. You leave the Wi-Fi for things that move. The things that don't move should be hardwired. And with how technology has evolved, the technology's evolved faster than our houses. So oftentimes things that aren't moving just need to be connected with Wi-Fi. But when you're doing this heavy work on a house, be it it's a new construction or substantial renovation, you have the time to hardwire things that don't move and free up your Wi-Fi for the things that it's best suited for, which are the things that move, like your phone or your laptop if you want to be out on your porch or at the living room table and things like that. So, yeah, my advice is to always just to be thinking about it early and be opportunistic about it. In fact, that's what I just told that same cousin in McKinney outside of Dallas. as he's doing some major renovations, I said, go stick in your wiring now. And even if you don't connect to it, I gave the example about how we put in some structured wiring, some category, I think it was category 7 locks on proprietary wiring, but it's the same thing as an Ethernet cable that's coiled up in the ceiling in 2 of the bedrooms for future installation that's already home run back to the cabinet there. So giving him those suggestions, another cousin who was going to build a house outside of Park City since moved to Connecticut, but stressing to him, now's the time to do that. And then just for myself, I ended up buying a new production home, as you know, in Tucson.
Oh yeah, we did that. We actually designed that one.
I actually designed that from the start. And because of that, I was able to push on that local production builder that I want these things done. Otherwise, I'm not going to do the deal on the house. And he made it possible. So we were able to design it from day one. It's a much smaller 2-bedroom, 1,100 square foot house. And therefore, itself is simpler than the house in Atlanta. But we were able to design it from day one. And everything has just been simple and seamless since then. And I've since then bought another house in Pensacola. This is an old house built in 1962, and it needs to be fully gutted because it's time. But I'm in a hurry to do that because it works as our beach getaway and everything's functioning fine. And when we get to a stage in our life where we're ready to think about how Jessica and I want to design it together, then we'll gut it. And we'll work with you on how to design everything. And of course, technology will have even further advanced. And just thinking ahead, knowing that that is a step in the process, that is a budget line item to include in budgeting for that renovation, all of that. Just thinking opportunistically and down the road and how to vision for this work. Yeah, because it matters. This is, I think, as important as plumbing, as electrical, as HVAC in our homes today. And to have this technology system thought about as a key part of the several systems that are part of homes today.
That's right.
It's just like I tell people about who are getting concerned about data centers and the proliferation of those. Like, they are going to be as important as the basic utilities that we need for our cities today, which is water, sanitary sewer, stormwater, electric, fiber. Data centers are going to be part of the basic infrastructure because of how we're going to become increasingly reliant on AI.
Yeah.
So that's a big cities system. And in our house, we need the complementary system to take advantage of that. And that's something that I know SBCom is on the forefront of.
I definitely want to circle back and touch point, right? So we did 2 projects together. The one in Atlanta, which we ad hoc'd, and then a totally different experience in the home in Tucson, right?
Right.
If you were to compare those 2, experience-wise, just that overall experience, how did it feel in comparison to the 2?
Tucson was much more relaxing because it was all done together and comprehensively, holistically integrated from day one. And it helped that I knew so much more through the experience with the Atlanta house. And so those lessons learned could apply to Tucson. And just even before signing the papers, knowing that I wanted to do it the proper way from day one was actually determining whether I was going to contract on this house, and drove that builder to making decisions about offering options that I needed him to offer to be able to do what I knew that SBCom and I needed to do.
So you're saying that if the builder had it in their timeline and in their budget lines for, planning this project, that was the deciding factor of whether you're going to even buy from that builder.
Right. I needed to know that I could put in the category 6A wiring. I needed to know that I could put a cabinet location where all the wires would home run to in the closet because it's Tucson and it's 115 degrees in the summer. So the garage was not an acceptable location for all of that technology. So I needed to know that they were going to give me the options that I needed to work with me so I could work with SBCom. And note too, this is a house in Tucson. It's far from here, but it didn't need to be here for SBCom to design it for me. So that relationship that we have built from customer and provider has been super important to me, that wherever I have a home, Pensacola being the next one. And by the way, Richard, did I tell you that I bought a lake ranch in North Dakota?
Oh, Jesus. No, you didn't.
I did. I bought 11 acres on a lake that's all hilly outside of Valley City, North Dakota, about an hour west of Fargo, that I want to put a cabin on someday. So we're going to be doing a design project in North Dakota, which, by the way, is the most fiber-connected state in the country. Fiber comes up to my property, even though it is very rural and 15 minutes away from this small college town. And it has water, it has electricity. The only thing it doesn't have is sewer, so it would be on septic. It's all right there, right up to my property. So yes, we have another project coming in 5 to 10 years when I put a cabin on my property in North Dakota.
Nice. Nice. So circling back, now that we learned those lessons learned, went to Tucson and future projects of, getting in early, getting to design, or even picking the builder, like you said, making sure that they're thinking about, hey, how are we going to implement technology? Because that's going to become a utility. So we talk to our trade partners like builders, architects, and interior designers all the time about when we should be involved. And the timeline that we say all the time is when architectural is finished and it's ready for MEP design, which is a mechanical, electric, plumbing, HVAC, that's when we need to be introduced as the consultant to help design the system. Does that fall in line with what your experience was in both going ad hoc and going, from day one?
I think for when you actually get into what I call, in my line of work, project development, that aligning that with the MEP step makes sense, but the vision step needs to come sooner. So you have that big picture idea of what is it that I want to get out of technology to live the way I want to live in my home, because it's such an important investment. And to do that vision step as early as you can with all the other considerations in building and designing a house, be it from ground up or a full or substantial renovation. So when you have that vision established, then you can start doing the more detailed planning about what types of particular vendors for technology to think about and how they play together, all that work that you advise on. And then when you get into the development and design side, then you merge in with that MEP design process. And that's when I, as a customer, am much more hands-off, right? Because here's my vision, and thank you for giving me this menu of choices to make it work. Let's do this combined system, or the ad hoc way we did it in Atlanta, and which, going forward, won't do now that I know more about how to maximize opportunities here. But taking that vision to understanding all the parts that come into play from the menu of options that that I could never know because it's not my industry, and then you go off and design it in coordination with the MEP process. That's why I see that vision starting very much upstream, and then merging in with the design, with the trades and the builder and the house. And that's when I'm hands off. I trust you to do the work because you're the expert.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that we should be even working with the architect to help create the vision together.
Yes.
Which is another key point, because sometimes with lighting, you can't get lighting at the right space, but if we can move those trusses and realign, now we have everything we need in place. and we have a dedicated closet that breathes for the technology. Yeah, definitely agree there. Right. If you had to describe us in 3 words, right? We have specific 3 uniques, but I'm just curious from you, what makes us unique in this industry, as you see right now, like just from the experience that you've had, if you could put 3 words together?
I would say knowledgeable and collaborative and, progressive.
Progressive. That's a good one too. Interesting. Okay. Very, very cool. If we take these 3 words, can you think of a time in our journey together, what made you choose those 3 words? What particular events that happened in our relationship that chose those?
Yeah, for sure. So about being knowledgeable, there's so many options out there in this industry that you have to be in that industry, a practitioner, an expert to know what's even possible. Because whatever ideas I might have, I'm missing the opportunities because I don't know that industry. I don't know all the possibilities out there. And so that's where SBCom, being knowledgeable about the industry, can then iterate based on some ideas that I have. You can ask questions that I don't think to ask to understand what's possible. So that's what I mean by knowledgeable. And I want to know the possibilities that fit within where I'm trying to head, and I want to be guided and then make those decisions. And that goes into being collaborative, right? So this iterative process, this discussion is very collaborative. So I can get what I don't even know is a possibility out there, plus the fundamentals of my vision, whatever that might be. And then progressive about thinking into the future, because I don't want to tear up the walls of my house again. I want to think about what's here in the future. You can't perfectly future-proof anything, right? Because the future's always moving ahead and fast. But what can I reasonably do so that over the next couple of decades, my house, or at least the time I'm in it, so for 20 years, that I know that everything I put in there will work. And if I want to upgrade, it's a simple plug and play, not opening up walls. So just thinking about that future. So that's what I mean about being progressive. And it all ties back to those 3 words about being knowledgeable, collaborative, and progressive, because they all reinforce each other on that Venn diagram.
And in 2021, when we did that today, right? So quite a few years. If there was one thing we could improve on, what would that be?
I think asserting with the builder or the architect the importance of your role, at SBCom's role, in working with the homeowner to increase satisfaction and therefore increase sales. Because the homeowner typically won't be that involved in MEP design.
Sure.
Or all those systems and structures that are all part of the house that most homeowners aren't going to be paying a whole lot of attention to. They take those for granted. But what are the things that they're going to be interacting with on a regular basis that they can actually not only be served by, but actually direct how those systems are working, right? I can't direct how the shower is going to be hot. The hot water is just going to come out of the tankless hot water heater. But to be able to say, all right, I want my club light on the soffit up on the deck to be this color, or Christmas colors for the holiday or something like that. To be starting with that builder and the architect early, to know that you're a key part of the process of helping the homeowner get as much as they can out of the house. Because I never heard the term low voltage wiring, and that there was a trade for low voltage wiring. It just figured that was something the electrician did. In fact, that's what the electrician did in Tucson, and none of the punch downs for the connections or whatever worked. So the crew out there actually had to fix all of those. So that it was a specialty, it was a trade that came with that knowledge and expertise that I just didn't know was an option. So SBCom asserting itself in the industry and showing what its value proposition is to increasing customer satisfaction and therefore increasing sales.
So just to make sure I understood everything that you just said is the only thing we need to do to improve is just to say, hey, get us involved sooner, and this is why.
Exactly. There's the value proposition. Okay. Yeah, you should be at the table.
I appreciate it, man. I really do appreciate you being at this table. I appreciate you taking the time. I knew when I asked you, I was like, I know you travel a lot, Manjeet. Will you be here? And you were able to make it. So I'm just truly grateful for that. I'm grateful for the trust. In multiple houses now that we're not doing the install, but we're designing them for you. So that way it creates a clear budget outline, et cetera. So that way you can, with your other relationships, to build and keep it in line. So I just appreciate that trust, man. I really do.
And you at SBCom have earned it. And that's why I come back again and again for more.